आप सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन. Today is a very special day. So green morning, green afternoon and green evening to all our brothers and sisters across the globe in different continents, in different time zones, in different countries, wherever they are. Today is a historic day because today a wonderful, innovative, creative, dynamic, vibrant budget has been presented in India. Today on Monday, 1st of February 2021, ladies and gentlemen, there was a budget presentation in the Indian Parliament by the Finance Minister of India. So throughout the day, you had a lot of deliberations and celebrations. Sensex has gone up. And this evening, and this morning, and this afternoon, all of us, when we are together, we extend a very warm welcome to Shri Ravindra ji, who is the chairman for the MSME sector for the ICSI, and he's a former chairman and managing director NSIC, National Small Scale Industries Corporation, under the aegis of Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, one of the most important component in the economy of the world and India. And we also have got, because our chamber is deeply associated with dynamic and creative and positive, the Indian diaspora world over, people those are keen. India should prosper, India should progress, India should grow, India should march ahead, India should move ahead. So we have got our advisor all the way from the United States who is joining us this evening, this morning, this afternoon. Dr. Vivek Shankar Natarajanji is from the Houston, Texas, and he is very, very innovative, dynamic, and a creative person. And we extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us. I shall be focusing this evening or this morning or this afternoon because the budget is wonderful. There are 6 pillars which have been discussed today, and those 6 pillars we will take subsequently. But my main focus would be because our chamber is for the service industry. The world has just come out of the COVID and the pandemic. And the wonderful part is the government has allocated 35,000 crores for the vaccine. And imagine, I would say it's a historic step because where you see the welfare of humanity, where you see the welfare of your people, and you see everybody got to be healthy because India being the youngest nation of the world today with the largest population of the youngsters. Let me move ahead. I shall be focusing on education. International Chamber for Service Industry extends a very warm welcome to all of you, all our brothers and sisters, those are across. We are one family. The entire globe is one family. Entire universe is one family. And from India, let's get the positive vibes and waves all the way to our brothers and sisters world over. Indian diaspora, we are proud of you. Vasudev Kutumbakam when I talk about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to focus on education sector. Before I come on the budget, I must do the curtain raiser that on 29th of July 2020, in right thick of the mid of the pandemic, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, along with him, the Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, the Honorable Education Minister of India, the new education policy was the green signal and the green wave, and we moved ahead. And on 29th of July 2020, I'm talking about, let's move ahead. And this new education policy in the phases to be implemented, and there we were talking about the values and the ethics and all the ancient times education. During pandemic, we have been doing the beaming throughout the day. And now today, 6 pillars of the union budget that is on 1st of February 2021 this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, health and well-being of everybody, maximum push being given. Let everybody got to be healthy. Everybody got to think positive, and your well-being is very important for all of us as a first priority. Physical and financial capital and infrastructure. My colleagues, they will be talking about it. Inclusive development for aspirational India. That's again very important. Reinvigorating human capital, and that is the education sector. We will talk about it. Innovation, research and development, and minimum government and maximum governance. So all the six pillars when we talk about, let me talk about reinvigorating human capital. The union budget of 2021 today, which was presented, it made a 9.5% higher allocation in the budget of education. Now it is 93,000 crores, 224.31 allocation towards the education. Ministry has given this special budget, and now the Ministry of Education is being empowered, and it has been given extra push because our children are very, very important. School education, when we talk about 15,000 schools will be strengthened by implementing all the new education policy components, and it shall act as an exemplar schools in their respective regions for mentoring other schools in India. Please understand, we have got 1.5 million schools in India. So, second part, coming from the armed forces, I feel very happy and enlightened and giving a positive and a new vibration in my body. 100 new scenic schools to be set up in partnership with NGOs and the private schools and the states. That is something. Can you imagine? What would the impact of scenic schools? The children who will come out of the scenic schools, nation's pride, patriotic, positive thoughts, positive feelings, and they would be dedicated and devoted towards making India Atmanirbhar Bharat, India progressing, India moving ahead with these children who will be coming out of 100 new scenic schools. Towards higher education also, the legislation to be introduced to set up Higher Education Commission of India as an umbrella body with the four separate vehicles for standard settings, accreditation, regulation, and funding. These are the four separate vehicles. Creation of the formal, that is one umbrella structure to cover all the government colleges, universities, research institutions in a city for a greater synergy. Blue grant to implement the same across 9 cities. And another very historic, it's a very emotional something feeling because I served over here. And when I look back, I recall all that Central University will come up in Leh for accessibility of higher education in Ladakh. I think it's the need of the hour, and this will do a great for all of us. Now, particularly for the children, those are deprived, for the SC and the ST, welfare of these children, when you talk about Eklavya model residential schools, 750 Eklavya model residential school in tribal areas will be established. There also will be a focus on creation of the robust infrastructure facilities for the tribal students of ours. And ladies and gentlemen, if you understand, these children need hand-holding. They are into interiors, they are into far-flung areas, and they need a lot of push and a lot of hand-holding towards education because it is very, very close. Education, skilling, and entrepreneurship being an integral part of the MSME when I talk about. Over here, this golden triangle, which our chamber believes in for the skilling, proposed amendment to Apprenticeship Act to enhance opportunities for our youth. India is a young nation. India is future. Indian youth got to do a lot. Rupees 3,000 crore for realignment of the existing National Apprenticeship Training Scheme toward the post-education apprenticeship training of graduates and diploma holders in engineering. Initiatives for partnership with other countries in skilling to be taken up forward similar to partnership. Now, with the UAE to benchmark the skill qualification assessment, certification, and deployment of certified workforce. As we all know, a lot of our youth and a lot of our people, they have gone to Middle East and they have gone to UAE and that particular area, and those are helping building a lot of infrastructure and areas, and they remit a lot of FDI to India. Now with Japan, for a collaborative training, inter-training program to transfer of skills, techniques, and knowledge. These are wonderful, uplifting education and skills. And our chamber, when we talk about making education relevant, 2021, our governing body and all the members have taken a decision that we took the input and consent of our Indian diasporas also, our advisors across the world over wherever they are, and our hardcore team over here in India. We all decided we are going to focus on making education relevant. Skills are very important. MSME is very important, micro, small, and medium enterprise. If you see the top golden triangle, that is education, skills, and MSME. Now, these have to be supported by research and innovation with the help of technology. Health and wellness is very important as it is. During this particular pandemic, we started with the health sector, then we had gone to entrepreneurship sector, then we had gone to media entertainment sector skill council, and nowadays we are with the wellness sector skill council. Water management and women empowerment. These are the focus areas of our chamber ICSI in 2021. Youth empowerment is very, very important for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, teacher empowerment is also very important. And the other day when we were learning, earlier it was teacher centric. I'm talking about education. It was teacher centric. Then it became learner centric. From there we became, what has come out of that? Teacher centric, learning centric, and thereafter teacher as a facilitator. Now the new norms have come. We are co-learners. Teachers also got to pick up a lot of threads. That's why in the new education policy, women empowerment is very, very important. If we want to change in the globe, we got to empower our women, because women got to be everywhere. They got to be equally responsible, equal partner. And whatever task we undertake, the women have to be pushed, empowered. They got to be pulled. They got to be given all help. Whatever best we can do for the women, that part has to be done in a very, very innovative, creative, and a positive way. That part has to be taken care of. ICSI will also help during this year for the incubation centers, which has to come up in the educational hubs, finishing lab, because we set up way back in 1994, the first finishing school. And from there, the soft skills and the life skills, we are going to focus on that. And then comes Atal Tinkering Lab. If you recall, on 12th of January, on Swami Vivekananda's birthday, there was this 2.0 by the Niti Ayog, the document which was given on Atal Tinkering Lab. So incubation center, finishing lab, and Atal Tinkering Lab, that's going to be the focus. Let's save every drop of water. It is very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, we had the First World War, we had the Second World War. If we want to avoid any kind of a confrontation with anybody, because all the research what we are gathering is every drop of water is very important for all of us, which we got to take into consideration. So ladies and gentlemen, whatsoever human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Our chamber, International Chamber for Service Industry, ICSI, extends you a very warm welcome. All our brothers, sisters, Indian diaspora, NRI. Now government has also opened up for the insurance sector. It has gone from 49 to 74%. That is something very important. No double taxing for the NRIs, nothing of that sort. That part has been declared today. So let's come together. Let's make education relevant. Today, on this budget day, we would like to make an appeal, and we would like to bring all our brothers and sisters further closer. You had been very, very active during the pandemic, during the coronavirus. You had been coming for the webinars. You have been sharing your thought processes. Now is the time that you should do a hand-holding and empowering the education and skills in India. All of us together, we should be on board on this journey further. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, let me extend a very warm welcome all the way from the Houston, Texas. We have got Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan, our advisor for the NRIs Forum based out of US. And we also have got Shri Ravindra, our Chairman for MSME sector for the ICSI, and he is the former NSIC CMD under the aegis of Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise. With the consent and permission of my Indian brother right over here sitting on the soil of India, Ravindra ji, let me take a journey, mental journey, spiritual journey, and appreciable journey to all our brothers and sisters, those are abroad. And I extend a very warm welcome, Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan ji, if we can have you. And from there, we take our journey onward. With these words, Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan ji.
Namaste, Gulshan ji. First of all, Vande Mataram, Bharat, to all my fellow Bharatiyas. I'm also a Bharatiya still in terms of my passport as well. So I think that is something I'm very, very proud of. I remember whenever it was February, we used to eagerly wait for the budget analysis. And to me, anybody who came on that show was somebody I used to respect a lot. Now, today, find myself on a chair, and Gulshan ji has put me in that chair to talk about the budget. I feel kind of it is a homecoming of sorts. I don't know. I'm still pinching myself and seeing if I really am worthy of that level of analysis. So, but I will like to offer some perspectives at the end. I would like to just kind of make one prayer here. That because this is for education, just one prayer to Saraswati ji. Dorbir yukta chaturbhi spatikamani mayim akshamalam dadanam hastenekena padmam sitamapita sukam pustakam chaparena basa kundendu shanka spatikamani bha basamana samana same vagdevatayam nivasato vadane sarvada suprasanna. Om Shri Ganeshaya namaha. Om Shri Mahasaraswatyai namaha. Om Shri Mahalakshmi namaha. So do you want me to, I can make a few observations, then I want to hear from the industry, because in academia, we want to hear from the industry, then we propose our models. So will that be okay with, yeah. So I'll make a few, okay. So I'll wait for Ravindra ji, because first of all, this budget to me is, we should empower the small and medium enterprises. So we should listen to them. And then we can see how we can support them. So with that, I want Ravindra ji to kind of say a few words. And then I will come back.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Natarajan ji. Thank you very much, Dr. Gulshan Sharma, for doing this program at a very, very, I would say, very, very monumental day in the history of India. Because when the COVID pandemic had struck and when the entire year was lost because of COVID, even now as it is unfolding and gradually people are coming out of it, we are still finding it a challenge to really accept what has happened in this budget today. But it really makes every Indian, whether in India or abroad, very proud of what our finance minister and our honorable prime minister has done. But while Natarajan ji sitting across in US was reciting some of the very holy scriptures of India, and when I knew that Mr. Natarajan is going to come on our program, I was reminded of what Reagan said about the economy. Mr. Ronald Reagan said about the economy, and he said, government's view on the economy could be summed up in few short phrases. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. So that is what, the humor of Ronald Reagan always said. But on a lighter vein, on a more serious note rather, that was in a lighter vein what Ronald Reagan said. On a more serious note, budgets are not merely affairs of arithmetic, but in 1,000 ways go to the root of prosperity of individuals, the relation of classes, and the strength of kingdoms. This is what our budget today has shown us. It really dwells upon every aspect. When Dr. Gulshan Sharma was talking about the 6 pillars on which this budget rests: health and well-being, physical and financial capital and infrastructure, inclusive development for aspirational India, reinvigorating the human capital, innovation and R&D, minimum government and maximum governance, is all what was summed up in what I just said. Not merely affairs of arithmetic, but in 1,000 ways go to the root of prosperity of individuals, the relation of classes, and the strengths of kingdoms. When we talk of kingdoms, we are always reminded of what people across the world have been saying. Looking at certain countries, they believed in giving directly money to the people so that they spend it. But then India stands out differently. I was listening to the finance minister a little while back, and I couldn't agree more with her when she said, well, we don't go by the way other countries do, that you give $2,000 or a few pounds to every individual and ask them to spend the way they want to. But we invest in infrastructure which will create more jobs and then increase the money power in the hands of the people. And that is what this budget is all about. And if I may just give the arithmetic part of it, let me just say that this budget estimates of expenditure for financial year 2021-2022 are 34.83 lakh crores. 34.83 lakh crores, and there has been a sharp increase in the capital budget. For 2021, the capital expenditure is made by providing 5.5 lakh crore, which is 34.5% more than the budget estimates of 2021. When you really look at the amount of expenditure, and again, the finance minister was asked, well, you have a huge deficit in your budget, almost plus 10%. How are you going to meet it? How do you anticipate, bringing in so much of money? The reply of the finance minister was what really people with a vision would say. उनका कहना था, क्या मैं पहले चिंता करूं कि पैसा आएगा तो खर्चे, या मैं पहले अपने 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 मुल्क को, अपने देश को इतना मजबूत बनाऊं कि हर कोई हमारे देश में इन्वेस्ट करने की सोच रखेगा, क्योंकि हमारा देश इतना सुदृढ़ है. And that is what I really like about her. Even though she has already made a clear plan that whatever be the requirement of borrowings for 2021 as well as for 21-22, because she anticipates that the gross borrowings for next year would be almost to the tune of 12 lakh crores. 12 lakh crores is what we are going to do. And it was natural that when pandemic COVID had struck, now when the medicines are coming, how this huge expenditure will be met, what sort of an expenditure would be incurred, how would the budget be prepared like this? Because when the pandemic struck us, we saw there were certain gray areas in our health sectors. And that is what a visionary in Mr. Modi has seen it and grabbed it and put it as the first slot of his budget. And that is where he says the budget outlay for the health and well-being is 2,23,846 crores in BE 2021-2022 as against the 2020-2021 of 94,452 crores, an increase of almost 137%. Never ever in the history of India would anybody have thought that the government would be committed to really look at the well-being of the people. And the multi-dexterous person our Prime Minister is, वो एक चीज सोचते हैं और चार चीजों पे निशाना लगाते हैं. देखिए उन्होंने क्या कहा, while we all had expected higher allocation in the health sector, given the vulnerabilities in the health infrastructure exposed by the pandemic, India's plan to set up 17,000 rural and 11,000 urban health centers along with public health labs is a step in that direction, that which will increase the environment in respect of health and well-being of the people. But not only that, sir, it will also generate significant employment in the health sector. Because the concern of everyone today is, ये जो बेरोजगार बने हैं, इनको रोजगार कैसे मिलेगा, इनको स्वरोजगार तक हम कैसे लेके जाएंगे. तो जहां एक तरफ हमने हेल्थ की बात करी, दूसरी तरफ अगर हम इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की तरफ देखें, even that has not been left out. As expected by the market, the budget has given high priority to the infrastructure investment in line with the National Infrastructure Plan. Significant step up has been made in the national highway projects, which are there in the annual. Significant allocations have been made in the railways and urban infrastructure, including public transport systems. The city gas distribution networks will be expanded further to smaller cities. And importantly, the national monetization pipeline for refinancing of operational projects has been contemplated, which will start from PGCIL and NHAI. The decision to set up separate DFI with an equity capital of 20,000 crores and with a loan target of 3 lakh crore over the next 3 years is yet another timely measure to facilitate adequate funding for the infrastructure. And as we were thinking about the investments which are going to go into that, sir, the road and highway infrastructure, there is an enhanced outlay of 1,18,101 lakh crores for the Ministry of Road and Transport, of which 1,08,230 crores is capital, which is the highest ever. Similarly, if we look at the railway infrastructure, a record sum of 1,10,055 crores for the railways, of which 1,07,100 crore is for capital expenditure. This is what the government has thought of, and very well, because normally it is being said कि रोजगार कहाँ से पैदा होगा, jobs कहाँ से पैदा होगी, कोविड बहुत सारी हजारों की संख्या में it has eaten away our infrastructure, our jobs of the youth and the people in our country. It is all these, but then somebody might say कि जब project लगेगा तब jobs होंगी. ये भ्रम है sir. It's not true, because the moment a project is brought on the platform, it starts creating jobs. It is the process which starts that young people are beginning to hire to start working on those projects. And I'm sure all these capital infrastructure investments which are there in every area, if you look at the arithmetic in them, it really shows what is being thought of for the people and for the kingdom, what I said initially. Similarly, sir, in the financial sector, there's a lot which is there, and a lot foresight has been shown by the finance minister and the honorable prime minister. The budget has made some very important announcements in the financial sector, sir. It has permitted 74% FDI in the insurance sector, which is expected to lead higher investments and consolidation in the sector. While another 20,000 crore has been allocated for capital in the public sector, because with all these NPAs which are being taken care of, the banks would be requiring more of equity infusion in them. And that is what the government has prepared. But more importantly, with the more of private players to be brought in, the government has announced its interest to disinvest its stakes in 2 of the public sector banks and 1 general insurance company. When you need money, you cannot work with closed fists. You need to open up, and you need to bring in more players so that the volumes increase, the size of operations increase. And that is what I believe is the thought of the government. And to handle these NPAs which are in the bank, the government has taken a very, very right step by planning to set up an asset reconstruction company and asset management company, which are being proposed to be set up to buy out the stressed assets of the banking sector. वो कहते हैं ना, दिवाली पे एक बार घर की सफाई कर ही दीजिए, तो अच्छा है एक बार जो हमारे बैंकों का भी ये चीजें एनपीएस ये पड़े हैं, हम कब तक अगर मैं बड़े क्रूड शब्दों में कहूं, कब तक इन लाशों को हम ढोते रहेंगे? क्यों ना इनको एक सेट असाइड करें और आगे की तरह एक पॉजिटिव सोच और एक साफ सुथरे रास्ते पे हम अग्रसर हों. And while we all wait for all these things to happen, I'm sure these would all be steps in the very, very right direction. And another thing, when the Prime Minister gave the slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat, there is a thought of having production-linked incentive schemes. The PLIs schemes are to create the manufacturing global champions for an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and for which 13 sectors have been identified. We need to go into that, and for this, the government has committed 1.97 lakh crores over a period of 5 years, starting with 2021-2022. And but despite having given a lot of money to the MSME sector initially, कहते हैं ना सर कि जैसे वो एडवर्टाइजमेंट है, ये दिल मांगे मोर. And that is where, when they gave 15,700 crores, which is more than double of the last year's BE, still we believe कि MSMEs को शायद अभी कम पैसा मिला है. हमारे कुछ भाई लोग हैं जो कहते हैं कि उसको डिवाइड करने लगते हैं तो कुछ 2,000 कुछ 4,000 रुपया निकल के आता है. मगर प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं सबका साथ सबका विकास, क्योंकि MSMEs केवल इस 15,700 करोड़ रुपए के ऊपर निर्भर नहीं है. उन्होंने जो MSMEs के लिए किया, उनको लगा कि आज के समय पर MSMEs को अगर लोहा नहीं मिल रहा है तो उन्होंने उसके कस्टम्स को कम कर दिया ताकि लोहे को हम बाहर से इंपोर्ट कर सकें. उनको जहां लगा कि हमारे MSMEs को चैलेंज हो रहा है बाहर से सामान आने पर, उन्होंने उसकी कस्टम्स ड्यूटी बढ़ा दी. तो ये होती है सोच कि जिसमें अपने सेक्टर्स को हम बांध के रख सकें, इंसुलेट कर सकें, प्रोटेक्ट कर सकें, एंड एट द सेम टाइम वी इंश्योर दैट द सेक्टर्स मार्च फॉरवर्ड. सर, स्कूल और एजुकेशन के बारे में आपने बड़े विस्तृत तरीके से बताया, और आई रियली सैल्यूट यू सर, बिकॉज परहैप्स the Prime Minister has seen your passion about education, and that is why he has done so much and given so much for the education sector. But I believe that all this is towards the bigger vision of the new education policy which has been put up, the new education policy which has been established. Even the startups, because we believe India is perhaps amongst the top 5 countries in the world where the startups are emerging and emerging in a very big way. In order to incentivize the startups in the country, the finance minister has offered to extend the eligibility of claiming tax holiday for 1 more year, that is till 31st of March 2022. Further, she has incentivized the funding of the startups, where she has extended the capital gains exemption for investments in startups by another year, that is till 31st of March 2022. But we all know in India that if India has to grow big, we need investments from abroad. We need investments, foreign investments in the infrastructure sector. And for that, and for attracting foreign investments in infrastructure sector, 100% tax exemption for the income for investments in India infrastructure had been given last year. But in order to ensure that the foreign sovereign wealth funds, the pension funds who are willing to invest in India, the government is prepared to relax some of these conditions relating to prohibition on private funding, relating to restrictions on commercial activities, and direct investments in infrastructure. These are all, I would say, very proactive measures on the part of the government by which all these projects, and to make a scale much bigger, these things would be possible. And to allow funding of infrastructure by issue of zero coupon bonds, the finance minister has proposed to make notified infrastructure debt funds eligible to raise funds for issuing tax efficient zero coupon bonds. I'm sure all these would be music to the ears of these foreign investors who are prepared to come and invest in India. And all these would definitely be helping us to move forward when we talk about that. Another very, very important part which is there is the thought of asset monetization. People were slightly critical of the finance minister and the government when they were thinking of the core infrastructure sectors will be rolled out under the asset monetization program. Dr. Gulshan Sharma, I would like to share with you the thoughts of the finance minister when she was responding to a question on this issue कि आप अपने घर के बर्तन, आप अपने घर के assets क्यों बेच रहे हैं? The finance minister, Natarajan Sahab, very well said that for those assets which are not giving you the right fruits, not giving you the right yields by the functioning under the government, it is always better to hand it over to those who have the competence, who have the passion, and who have the capabilities to give you the yields which those assets are supposed to give us. So it is not only the roads, it is not only the public sectors, it is not only the ports which perhaps would be there.
I think his internet connection, Vivekji, can you hear?
Yeah, no, I'm not able to hear.
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with the internet connection. That will come back again. Let us see, it will come back again.
On the issue of monetization, sir, on the issue of selling of these assets, when people said that, well, finance minister, you thought of it last year, but you couldn't do it. You're bringing it back again. The finance minister's view and the finance minister's vision was very, very apt. She says, we are not going to sell off our assets in times when the market is down, in times when the economy is slow. We will wait for the right time and we will pitch in on the right occasion. And when the market responds in a manner as it did today, and as it was doing a few days back, I'm sure despite the COVID pandemic, the market is going to be very robust. And in time that the government thinks that we will be getting the right prices for all these things. These are the few things which straight away came to my mind, and I thought of sharing with the participants over here today. Dr. Gulshan Sharma, I will definitely like to come back on any of these other reactions or any of the thoughts which come to my mind. I'd like to invite Mr. Natarajan over here to have his views as to how he thinks that now the NRIs would look back towards India, that they have been given an opportunity to even invest in startups.
Gulshanji, thank
Please,
you.
sir.
And yeah, thank you, Ravindra ji. And first of all, it's a tough act to follow. You have given a very erudite and granular deep analysis of the budget. So I'm going to have to go back and play a little bit of the macro guy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the optics of the budget. I think any budget is kind of like a roadmap. It's for the future by looking at the past. It's almost trying to see where your car might go by looking at the mirror and trying to move it in that direction. So it is as much about the sentiment and the optics rather than the specific finance. So there is, in fact, a good budget should be a healthy mix of prose and poetry. And I think this budget is probably going in that direction. Normally, of course, I'm sure this itself is a good research topic, what kind of poetry gets quoted when and what sentiment it reflects, but I'm not going there. No, where am I very impressed? In the Shastras, they talk about when we bless somebody, we bless with the fact that Ayuhu Arogyam Aishwaryam. So that is the hierarchy. First, you need long life. Jaan jaye to kya, we can't even leave, right? I mean, aap rahenge tabhi to kuch banega. So we need to focus on Ayuhu, longevity, then Arogyam, which is health, and then Aishwaryam comes. So I think in that spirit, this budget reflects that sentiment. There has been a lot of emphasis, given especially the COVID context, a lot of emphasis on health. When I talk about health, of course, the physical health and the spending on health, and that is important. But health also as a function of the physical infrastructure. And I don't know if I should use the word Keynesian, but yeah, but typically when economies contract, and this is one of the few rare times when a GDP has contracted, but remember, India is not in isolation. Even the world economy has contracted. Even the US economy is seeing contraction. And so during these times, you have to fiscal prime, you have to spend and grow. But now, there are many ways you can spend. You can put money in the hands of consumers. I mean, that's kind of what happened in the US. You had the $600 funding or kind of a stimulus package, and there is another stimulus that is still seeing something, and then we had the payment protection plan. Anyway, and I actually was having a discussion with one of my friends who's a small business owner. He said, hey, when the government gives me money for payroll, that means my payroll taxes run, and so it collects back as taxes. That's one model. Okay, maybe that works in developed economies, but as they say, crisis is too good an opportunity to let go, to be wasted. I think the government has really used this opportunity. So Diwali, आपने जो बताया, Diwali के time में जो करना है, you have to clean the houses. It is not only, whenever there is a problem, this is a time, whenever there's a crisis, you innovate. And I think the government has taken the effort to invest in infrastructure. I mean, I'm not going into the specific numbers, but look at the money that's been put in transportation, railways, and remember, that's how an economy takes off. Whenever we talk about why is the Indian economy kind of having growth constraints, one of the biggest problems people talk about is the lack in infrastructure, whether it's roads or deep freezes for storing agricultural produce, the trains network, the ports, the airports. We need money, and I think this government is forward looking by not spending on a stimulus through putting money in the hands of consumers, but rather spending it on infrastructure. So, this is kind of, again, I want to make a little bit of a historical point here. People talk about Keynesian economies, sure. But even in the past, when India and all had famines and we were a rain-fed economy, the kings used to, invest in temple building and building the roads. That's how we stimulated the economy. So there is a tradition in India. So it's not like, something happened in UK and we picked it up. I think this tradition is part of our democratic society. The kings always used to spend during times of famines and all that, and because that's the only way you can put money in the hands. And we were not the society that gave away doles. We were, we are a very proud society. People want to work for their living. So you spend on infrastructure. This means people earn a livelihood. And I agree with Ravindra ji. The moment you start a plan, even from the ideation phase, you're going to be spending dollars or rupees. And so it is not that the jobs will not happen. From day one, the jobs will happen, especially if they go in the right fashion. So that is there. And of course, it has a multiplier effect. Now, let me come back to another thing. So I said, Ayuhu Arogyam, Aishwaryam, that is like wealth. How do you create wealth? In the last 30, 40 years, countries have realized one way you create wealth is by education and then innovation. Again, I think in India, this is something not new. We are a society that celebrates Vidya, or Saraswati. I started with a prayer to Saraswati Ma, and basically we say, Ya Vidya Sa Vimuktaye. The real education liberates you. So if you have to become Atmanirbhar, you can only become Atmanirbhar through Vidya or education. And I think our Vidya Mantri, our Honorable Ramesh Pokhriyal ji from the Devbhoomi created the new education policy. That is the Saraswati document. And based on that, we have the Lakshmi document coming from Nirmala Sitharaman ji. So in our society, Saraswati is always first. Lakshmi will support Saraswati. And I think this budget has done a great job of allocating. Again, I saw the numbers, sheer fascinating numbers. It's 9% or more compared to last year, to boost the national education policy, because you can't do anything in isolation, but you have to fund it. And you're putting the money in education, you're putting the money in innovation. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, late Prime Minister Bharat Ratna Atal Bihari Vajpayee said, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, but he also said, Jai Vigyan. And so you have to put money in Vigyan, you have to put money in innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups. And I think this budget is doing. Again, I'm not going to specifics because my good friend ji and co-panelist Ravindra ji has done an eloquent job with going into the granular detail. I'm talking, he did the prose part well. I'm kind of going into the poetry mode, waxing eloquent. Because at the end of the day, as you say, we may be Pravasiya Bharatiyas, we are not, but we are still Bharatiyas at heart. And whenever somebody is trying to do anything good for India, our heart starts to flutter because there is a lot of passion. And last but not the least, I'm also, there's always a little bit of, hey, what's in it for me? So one of the things I looked at as an NRI is there was a little bit of a problem for the previous 4 years or 5 years because of this taxation. As an NRI, what do you do with your retirement accounts when you're in US? And a lot of people who want to relocate have this problem. They say there's double taxation or not. The government shows that it is listening to each of us. There is already a line item that talks about this retirement account. There'll be some new guidance. And that's a big thing because a lot of people who may want to come, all these could be deal breakers. So this government is embracing and making it easy for people who want to come back and support. I think that's a very important signal because for a lot of people, this is their lifetime savings. And a tax on this may or may not could be a deal breaker. So I think that is also important. I wanted to articulate that from the NRI standpoint. I think you can create even a one-person company, one-man company as an NRI. There's a lot of these other shops. Again, I'm not, as I said, my job is not to go into specifics. Two more things, sir. Sainik schools, I agree with you. There's a Sainik schools will have a multiplier effect because they produce people of character. So 100 Sainik schools, as Swami Vivekananda said, give me 1,000 great, good youth. We will transform the society. I'm sure the 100 Sainik schools will create those kind of people which we are going to be trained to help India become great and Atmanirbhar. Now, the other thing, sir, that caught my attention. Last, I think it was 2019. One of the biggest things that our Honorable Prime Minister, the maker of developed India, Modi ji, said and quoted by and supported by his able Ram Lakshman, as I call them, Amit Shah ji, the Honorable Home Minister, they did they did away with the Article 370, and one of the things they did, monumental, creating the Union Territory of Ladakh. Another thing that happened on that day to show that we are a nation of youth, the young MP from Ladakh spoke. He said, "Aap aiye, Ladakh dekhiye, Leh dekhiye." And you know what happened? Today we are seeing a central university come up in Leh. This, sir, she's definitely going to be a game changer because remember, Ladakh was always a center of the Buddhist monasteries. So I'm sure we are embracing and putting it back where it belongs. We need to create the new traditional, along with the tradition, we need to create a new university so that we can bring development to Ladakh, because I think that is our Sindhu. We are India. India comes from the word Sindhu, and Sindhu is found only in the Ladakh area. So for every Indian, this should be a matter of pride that you're putting something in Leh or actually Ladakh region. So the Central University, and I salute everybody starting from the Prime Minister to the Finance Minister for having the vision to do that. And one last but not the least, a unified body for regulating education, National Education Commission, Higher Education Commission, sir. For a long time, we had the UGC Grants Commission. I mean, grants sounds that we are giving money. It's not about granting. It is about education. And so the vision, look at the words, because we are a nation in which words matter. All our Shastras, Mimamsa is all about understanding a word. If you understand one word correctly, everything follows. So the words, there is a new poetry in the air. I mean, there's a new spirit, and I think we should embrace this. As they said, whatever happened in the past has happened. I'm sure the post-corona India has shown remarkable leadership in ensuring social distancing, not because of governmental norms, but because people respect the appeal of the Prime Minister. We have created great vaccination. I'm sure with the vision of our Prime Minister and his entire cabinet and all of our elected representatives, we'll have a great nationwide vaccination. And once we are done, we have to look for the way forward. I'm sure this budget will be the catalyst. And whenever, there is, I'm sure with the blessings of all of our devatas, as we call our 330,000 devatas, that is what we say. I pray that this heralds a new chapter of growth in the ancient civilization, but the young country that is Bharat. Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Thank you.
Thank you
very much, Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan-ji. And yes, Ravindra ji.
Sir, I missed out on one thing which the government has done and which is very, very vital. And that is for the migrant workers and laborers. When the COVID pandemic had struck, what we saw was people moving on the roads and traveling big distances. And while the government tried to give them the food, one nation, one ration card, and all those schemes have come, but even in this budget, the government has thought of another initiative, which is very, very relevant for all these migrant workers and laborers. the government has decided to launch a portal that will collect relevant information on gig, building, and construction workers, among others. This portal will help in formulating health, housing, skill, insurance, credit, and food schemes for the migrant workers. The social security benefits will extend to gig and platform workers. Minimum wages will apply to all category of workers and they will be covered under the Employees State Insurance Corporation. Women will be allowed to work in all categories and also in the night shifts with adequate protection. And at the same time, while all this is being done, the compliance burden on the employers will be reduced with single registration and licensing and online returns. I'm sure this particular thing would be very, very useful because if the government knows what is the type of labor, from where do they belong to, where are they going to work on, this would be very, very extremely useful. And I'm sure this would be really helping even the industry if they want to tap into the workforce which they need and what sort of skill sets do they possess, what sort of skill sets do we need to improve upon, and that definitely would be very useful. So with the investments which are being made for the infrastructure sector, why are they so very relevant? Why are they so very important? The infrastructure sector contributes almost 9% of the country's GDP. 9% of the GDP. It is the second largest employer, 51 million people employed in the construction industry. More than 45 million additional jobs are going to be created. And Indian construction space is predicted to employ more than 76 million people by 2022. That is where all this spending in the infrastructure sector would become so very useful. Some say that the real estate has not been given its due, but then everything doesn't come directly. The certain softs being given to the individuals on buying a house, on buying a real estate, on housing for all these are steps which would definitely boost the investments in the real estate sector also. These were a few things which I had missed out earlier, and I thought since they are so very relevant for us, they deserve a mention.
Very kind of you, sir. Very kind of you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also share with you that Ravindra Nath ji, besides being a visionary and expert, he's a qualified chartered accountant. He comes from the finance background. So that is basically because finance is very important in life. Before I go for the final version and Shaloka and the closing,
Gulshan, I want to make a couple of points.
Oh, please go ahead.
No, first of all, no wonder. I mean, I was wondering what the background for Ravindra Nath ji was, but when you say CA, because I'm married to a chartered accountant, that's the only thing I could do. I was not as smart as becoming one, but I came close. I married one. But no, I think the point is when I talk about CAs, I mean, the kind of training that they do in terms of analysis, that's a very important. So thank you, Ravindra Nath ji. You actually made a very incisive analysis. 2 points. I think the migrant worker, that is a very important thing because, when you spend on this kind of populations who are at the bottom of the pyramid, it has a better effect on the economy. I think it is important. We are not exactly a socialist country, but we do need to have that social net. And I think we saw during the crisis, these classes were deeply affected. And I'm happy the government has waken up to that because a government cannot just be seen as just regulating. We have to, as they say, Sam Dand Dand Bed. We should carry a stick, but he should also speak softly and be helpful to people who are really suffering. And I'm happy for that. And the other one is the one-person company that can be set up. I think that is also going to be helpful. And I also saw somewhere, if you want to have the burden of compliance and all that, I mean, it's gone up from 5 to 10 crores, you can do that. And all that helps because remember, the small guys, don't go after the small guys. Most of them don't have the time to even get their business done. They're always scrambling. So if you can support the small business, and this is something in the US I've seen, the more small business you support, that feeds the families. I mean,
Very
big
true.
businesses feeds the shareholders. The small businesses really puts all their foods on the table. So it's important we support our small business because they are the backbone of our economy. They are really what makes you Atmanirbhar. So, and we are a nation of small business, small farmers, small traders. We should never forget them. And I'm happy that Nirmala Sitaramji has kind of made sure all of them are provided for. Thank you. Again, Gulshanji, thank you for giving me this opportunity. But again, the only thing is I'll have a confession to all our readers. I was given a notice only 3 hours back. So if I did not give a lot of detail, it was basically like a student who comes and shows up for the exam at the 11th hour. So I just told her I had to do what you call as, basically fast upload, fast download. So if I did not do, I did my best. That's all I can say. And Ravindra ji is a tough act to follow. Sir, your analysis was really good. It reminded me of all those great analysis that I think it was LC Jain and the likes of him. It was a ritual that I used to watch. Budget, I used to take the day off and watch it fully. So it brought me back those wonderful memories. Thank you, sir. I think one more point, historically, previously, but budgets were always in suitcases and people used to come with suitcase and then it moved into a folder. Now I think it is even further. It's a smart budget. It's a digital budget.
It's a digital budget.
All of these are.
Yes.
The only tradition which they have still followed is the making of the halwa.
Halwa, absolutely. Halwa ceremony, absolutely. And I hope some of these traditions are important. And I think previously we used to have all these budgets around the end of February, but now we are doing it even earlier, which is also good because the more information you give at the beginning of the year, it helps planning. So that is also useful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, one anecdote they talk about why the budget secrecy is maintained is I think this came out of the British Parliament. I think the finance minister, I think the reporters were trying to pry open, hey, what do you think, where it's going to happen? Kind of inadvertently, I don't remember which minister it was, but I think he said, maybe tomorrow I have to pay. I mean, he didn't say that. He said that it'll be more expensive to get a more sweeter coffee or something. So people figured out that it's going to become, the sugar is going to get expensive. And so there's a lot of trading that happened on just that information. But I guess, so these days you need that secrecy. So with that's why the halwa ceremony is done. But by and large, it's interesting. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So one more thing which I believe we would be doing injustice to the finance minister if we do not mention that despite the situation, despite the challenges of finance and the management of finances which he had to do, one thing which he still did not do is increase the taxes.
Taxes, yes.
She has not touched upon the tax structure.
Yeah.
She has tried to rationalize to the maximum extent possible. While she has put a cess for the infrastructure, the agriculture sector, the agriculture infrastructure development, but people were trying to again, play around the figures and say, well, no, the petroleum and the diesel prices will be going up for the common man, and she is going to do it like this, and this will be a burden on everybody. But she came out and categorically said, it is only a playing with the figures, and really the prices of petrol and diesel might go down by 2 to 3 paisa.
Yes.
So admirably, she has done a very wonderful job by not even, while, as humans, as individuals, as I said earlier, we always say, ye dil mange more. कुछ और मिल जाए, कुछ और tax relief मिल जाए, मगर आप ये देखिए, she has done a wonderful job. She has said, Dr. Gulshan Sharma is proceeding towards 75. So let me start preparing people who are 75. They should not be bothered to file their tax returns if their incomes are from pension and for interest on FDs.
Yes.
She heard Dr. Gulshan Sharma says that biologically I might be 72, but in my heart and in my soul, I am only 20. So she kept him out and touched only people of 75 years. But then it's a very good gesture for the senior citizens of our country, for the real senior citizens who have contributed to this country in a very big way. As the country moves towards the 75 years of its independence, which perhaps would be next year, but then without touching on the tax structure, without increasing the taxes and bringing in so much of investments which have to be done, I must say it's salutations to the finance minister. It is salutations to the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, Gulshanji, I made one more point. I think somewhere I also read the number of taxpayers has really increased. So I think that is also a good thing. So because a lot of times that is the problem. If we could increase our tax base, then maybe that is how we are able to keep the rates effectively smaller. If the compliance increases and our base increases, and I think that is thing, because normally otherwise what happens is and the other problem is this: if you had done anything with the taxes, it would have been symbolically a bad gesture. As I said, a budget is as much about poetry as much as it is about prose. So I think the poetry was the right spirit, because we said, okay, we understand it's a pandemic. We don't want to fix all that, because moment you say a tax increase, and this is happening in many countries, that really goes and it has a very negative sentiment. So, and kudos, I think the Sensex has responded well, and I hope the GDP responds well. I hope the country responds well, and I hope this heralds the start of a new Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you.
Very true. Very true.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Now, first of all, my deep regards and thanks to Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajanji and Ravindra for this. Let me get back to this once again. Few tips, we will just take it before we close down. First of all, it's a historic day because ever, for the first time, a digital budget has been presented. A paperless budget, not a single paper. That means India is moving towards digital direction. And also another area where she has told that if you have this kind of so much of percentage of transaction in digital, then no taxes would be there. That was very interesting.
She's prepared to invest more for that, sir.
Yes. And let me get back to, once again, infrastructure we are talking about. Yes, infrastructure is in the entire ecosystem, jobs, entrepreneurship. And like Ravindra mentioned very, very categorically and very clearly in a very simple way, because once the infrastructure is there, you imagine what all is required in the ecosystem of infrastructure. All that is very important. Now, two factors for the human beings are very important. Your health, that means your wellness, and second is your education. Again, I get back to that. When you're talking about the entire ecosystem of infrastructure, I'll come over here once again. She made a mention that FDIs would be invited. When you go through the section, the annexure, you will come to know the FDIs will be invited for the education sector and bring as much as you can to education. Then she told, we need talented teachers. We need innovation. We need better labs. And also, all my brothers and sisters, those are abroad, my Indian diaspora, from our chamber, because we are working closely with all of you, let's make India as a preferred destination for education. Let's start getting more and more people coming to India, because when the infrastructure is getting developed, and India has already told that 100 foreign universities to come over here and set up their campuses. Imagine, it is the need of the hour. We should start getting more people from abroad. And I recall the other day when Professor Vivek Shankarji, you organized one panel discussion, and it was very nice to hear over there. I still recall, and that was something very pragmatic. I wish to repeat that. Why people will come to India? And that day, one of your speakers, our Indian diaspora, he said, we have got all comforts, we've got all facilities, everything is fine. If somebody will come to India for education, particularly from the Western shore, from the European Union, Canada, and United States, that area, it will be for spiritual journey. It will be for spiritual journey. I still recall that. And that was a wonderful statement which somebody has told. And there's going to be a huge demand for teachers. That's something is very important. We are recommending very strongly to the government. Subsequently, I'll share with you. She has also got into the annexure, cyber and forensic science education also to be encouraged. Because in the coming times, you will require a lot of cyber security. Because as we will move digital, you would have more cyber, kind of things which are to be required. So jobs and skills we have covered. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we are talking about the entire ecosystem of development, infrastructure, education, health and wellness, self-development, and India becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat, and you made a mention something very interesting, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Vigyan. That was also, we have got three things to be considered in mind: the size of our country, the scale on which it has to be done, and the speed on which it has to be done. So size, scale, and speed, a multiplier effect to the entire economy. India is going to be rocking the youngest, the population of the world. World will look towards India if Indians, they take the desired skills, they take the desired competencies, and micro, small, and medium enterprise only can save. And we are very, very happy when we have seen that a very humble inputs from our chamber, when we have gone to the corridors of the MSME ministry, that the manufacturing and the services sector have been brought at par with each other. That is something amazing which we have got, all of us. So thank you very much for joining all the way from United States. Thank you very much, our chairman, MSME sector, joining us, Ravindra ji, and signing off. Green morning, green afternoon, green evening. Let's think about Atmanirbhar Bharat.